Welcome back to Gabbin, Gridiron, everybody. I'm Josh McSwain, here once again with my co host AJ Torres. Week
A
5 of the NFL was among the most controversial that we have seen in a long time. I know we want to get this out of the way right now, so let's just go. We used to ask ourselves, what is a catch? Now we're asking ourselves, what is roughing the passer? Who knows anymore?
yes. Can I just say this? And it's amazing what it's amazing that we've gotten to the last game of the week first off the list. But I will say that I almost woke up my entire house. That was absolutely fugazi. That was absolutely disgraceful. And the fact that it was, because everyone's like, oh, well, what are they do with the homes? I'm sorry. Have you not watched the games? I understand if you watch the highlights, but if you actually watch the games, watch the film, you should see some of the hits that Mahomes gets. You should see some of the hits that he takes. Because if that was Aaron Rodgers or Tom Brady, everyone would be having a hissy fit.
Yeah. I mean, what's Jones supposed to do? Stop himself in midair? I mean, I thought the point of the rule was that you don't pile drive a quarterback into the ground.
And
He
he let up.
certainly didn't.
He let up. He landed a little bit. If okay, he's risking himself. He's landing on his left elbow and a little bit on the left knee, and you still gonna call the flag? That come on. That should be that should be a closer game. I mean, thankfully they came back, and if you have watched the Raiders all year, I don't know who you blame for all of this mediocrity, all this losing. Listen, I understand that they've played some good games against some good opponents, but if you just look around, the blame game is really going around. I mean, you could blame Devontae Adams, not just for him shoving the cameraman, but that last route. You could blame him. He's part of that. You could blame Derek Carr a little bit, and of course, you could blame McDaniels and his staff. If you look at this team that was supposed to be, hey, they're going to keep the division competitive. You could say the same thing about the Broncos too, but Maron, it just looks like chaos. It's unorganized chaos. I'm surprised that those guys know how to function. You look on the field, they said everything was retooled, everything was better. No, it got worse. How did you get better on paper, but the product on the field is worse?
Well, I think, and I've said this for a long time, I think they caught lightning in a bottle last year with Rich Bisaccia, and I thought ordinarily that might be a six-ish win team. So when I thought they were coming into this year as an 8-win team, like I thought they were a better on-field product than they were last year. But of course, I've made it known I'm not a McDaniels fan. His time in
Same.
Denver was whack, and I just is he going to be a lot different? It seems like early on the answer is no, but to be fair to the Raiders, they've lost by 5 to the Chargers, 2 to the Titans in Nashville, 1 to the Chiefs in Kansas City, and, well, I guess by 6. Still a one possession game to the Cardinals. Well, they have no one else but themselves to blame for that. Although, that team should probably be 3-2. Could argue even better than that because you had a 17 to nothing lead and you blew it. You also
You,
think maybe their defensive coordinator would have an idea that covering Travis Kelsey is a good idea. I mean,
very true.
4
I mean, four,
touchdowns? Come on.
four.
What are you doing?
I, I'm sorry, but I mean, touchdown wise, the yardage wasn't all that great. But I mean, in the key spots, I mean, you look at the red zone. I don't think Travis Kelsey's ever going to have 4 touchdowns in a game again.
Yeah, and
And
didn't
if
Kelsey also say before the game, like, I love playing the Raiders because I'm guaranteed 2 touchdowns or something like that? I'm
I
just like,
forgot what it
wow.
was, but also a lot of love to Orlando Brown Jr. I mean, this team is. I mean, of course, it's a force. It's Kansas City, but I'm trying not to be biased here, but the division's still tough, but I mean, I thought this Raider team was going to be between 6 and 8 teams, and I'm sorry, 6 to 8 wins, but 1 and 4 so far. I just don't see it. Do you? Do you see something I don't? I mean, outside, you
Well,
could argue the same thing with the Broncos.
again, it's really hard to say. And Max Crosby, got to give him mad respect for the game he played. He just
Indeed.
dominated Chiefs' right side of the offensive line. Guys are just a heck of a player.
That's why I got him on my fantasy team.
Good choice.
Indeed.
And then there was the whole situation after the game. We all know the Devontae Adams shove ordeal. That probably would have gotten a 15-yard penalty in the game, but it has now gotten him an assault charge. And I think he deserves a 1-game suspension for this. Some
I
people
agree.
have argued that the cameraman wasn't looking and got in Adams' way. But I mean, that doesn't excuse Adams suddenly thinking he's Gandalf and being like, "You shall not pass." You don't get the right to do that. I mean, come on now. I think what he should have done instead of doing a half hearted Twitter apology, just say nothing on social media, call the Chiefs and say, "Hey, I want to find out who that guy is," and then apologize to him. And then you call the guy, you offer to replace any damaged equipment or pay for any treatment that he needs. And then a few days later, you could say, "I've talked to the guy, we've worked it out." And then I think everybody would be fine with it. But yeah, social media apologies, they just don't really work.
I mean, he said to the media when they put the mics in front of him, he said on social media. But the thing is, right? I mean, I understand spur of the moment and everything else. And I understand you gotta be professional, but I mean, even if you like said, "Oh God," and you like helped the guy up, right? Because we have no idea what happened. You just saw him get pushed, and that was it. You don't see him fall to the ground. You don't see anyone going to help him. I mean, these are people too. I mean, actually, it's very funny you say that because I actually found out a MLB Hall of Famer is now an NFL photographer full time.
Interesting.
Randy Johnson. I didn't believe it.
Hmm.
Yeah, I
Wow.
was shocked. That guy needs to keep busy apparently. But yes, I mean, I would say, and I put this on social media just to get people's reaction, just to see what I can do there. But my thought was undisclosed fine or 1 game suspension.
Yeah, I would say that's fair. And then all the going for two, I'm not sure I quite understand it. So you're the Chiefs, and you are up at that point 30-23. I guess I could kind of understand the going for two because then you make it a two possession game. But I still think I would have just kicked the extra point, made it an 8-point game, make the Raiders have to get the 2-pointer, even though there still was quite a bit of time left. But I digress. Then the Raiders, with 4:27 left on the clock, you're trying to get that 1-point lead. It's like, this guy Mahomes, he needs a lot less than 4:27 to make you pay. Just, I don't get it. I'd have just tied the game up. And, at the very end, could have made a big difference.
I mean, as far as clock management, as far as what to do, I mean, I'm a believer in going for the points personally. And I think has to go by momentum. I understand trying to go for it, even though that's not my thing. I think the main reason was because maybe Reed thought, you know, if they score one more time and they go for the 2 point conversion, we haven't been good in the red zone on passes, which I agree. Once the Chiefs have gotten, been their own red zone at inside the 5 yard line, the coverage just seems to be bad. They usually pass rush too much. They find a guy open, and all he needs is just 2 feet, and that's it. He's in.
Right. Man, I was thinking about this the other day. You can't just reduce football to a set of numbers. There's more
Agreed.
to it than that. Because
Yes.
if all it was is just following numbers, then let's just get a robot as a head coach. You'll have Watson versus Watson on two NFL teams. Yeah, that would just
Speaking of,
absurd. I'm being absurd, but come on now.
well, I understand that there's numbers and then there's, oh, well, it says here on third down, when it's 3rd and 5, we should not go for the quarterback sneak. Uh, duh. Like, that's obvious. You know what I mean? Or better yet, third and
Yeah.
9. But I digress. But if we want to go by numbers, here's one for you. I was watching the Cardinal game play against the Eagles. Now, some people think the Eagles are overrated or however you may put it. But did you know that there's only one score for the Arizona Cardinals in the first half?
No, I did not.
And that was week 5 against the Eagles. In the first quarter at 0 points. And 0
Wow.
points until they scored that touchdown against them this prior week.
Hmm.
So if you were to go by this, if you look at the standings, we have the Cardinals at 2-3. We have that choke job against, the Raiders and one other team here. But my thought is, if you look at those statistics, and that's a simple one, you're not playing well in the first half. You're playing like crap. When the lights are on, when there's a serious game, a division game, you have to play good for all 4 quarters.
Mm-hmm.
People used to say that about the Bills, not good for all 4 quarters. Okay, then what the hell are the Arizona Cardinals in the first half? Because I don't care if you're Cliff Kingsbury, I don't care if you're Kyler Murray, I don't care if DeAndre Hopkins is healthy or active, not on suspension. I don't care who's healthy on the pup list, who is play calling, nothing. Get your shit together, because when there's a playoff game or just a regular season to try and get to the playoffs, are you really going to depend on your defense to not allow anybody in their house and the offense to score 20 plus points in the third half to keep it competitive again, or third quarter to keep it competitive? It's just not practical. Look at the Raider game. They're down 20-0. It's not practical for your quarterback to say, oh, yeah, by the way, we need 3 touchdowns. Go do that for me.
True. Very
Thank God
true.
for thank God for choking. Otherwise, they're one of the worst teams in the NFL.
Right. Well, moving on. Got to make sure I get this in. Not sure how many times I'll get it in this year. The Texans win! Yay!
Yay.
Beating the Jaguars for the 9th straight time. 5th straight time in North Florida. Great place for the Texans, terrible for the Colts, but I digress on that point. 1 touchdown, Damian Pierce suddenly looks like a very good pick. And
A
Trevor
monster.
Lawrence, after 2 good games, suddenly is back down again. He's got all the talent, but, he might be a roller coaster this year. I consider this his real rookie year. We're just going to have to just scrub the whole 2021 because he had no chance at that point.
I agree.
Yeah, Lovie Smith's defense continues to be really good, even though they gave up over 400 yards. Texans offense, sluggish, as you can imagine, only had about 250. But a win is a win.
Agreed. Not a high scoring game. It was definitely gritty and
No.
just trying to see who could make, better throws, better mistakes. I mean, do I see this Davis Mills and Trevor Lawrence rivalry be good? Well, it depends on what kind of football you're into. I like the close games though. That it's one of those games where on any play, anything can happen. You have no idea if
Mm-hmm.
somebody's going to fumble the ball. You have no idea if somebody's going to throw a pick. You have no idea if somebody could get burned for a 50-yard plus touchdown.
Yeah. One other note from this game: Trayvon Walker, the number 1 overall pick, he was penalized 15 yards for unnecessary roughness for that, like, grab a quarterback by the hips and sling him down. It was called a personal foul in this game. Was called on the Tampa Bay and Atlanta game. Brady got the call. Marcus Mariota didn't. I think it's all back to that Tua play in Cincinnati where he got hurt really badly. I mean, a lot of those plays where the defender slings the quarterback in, like, I get how you can have his head crash to the ground and get whiplash, but those aren't like dirty hits, and it doesn't always happen either.
How
So
many times have you
this is
seen
getting kind of ridiculous.
how many times have you seen a guy try to hip tackle the quarterback and try and spin and bring him down with him and he dodges it? How many times have you seen those guys spin out of it? I've seen it. We've seen Mahomes do it. We've seen Herbert
Yep.
do it. We've seen some of these Russian quarterbacks do it.
Right.
It's just it happens.
Yeah.
Again, I don't want to sound too old school, but it's a contact sport, for crying out loud. We know that some of these guys are fragile. We know some of these guys are old. But guess what? You put on the gear. Act like it.
Right.
You put on your shoulder pads to play football, not lacrosse, football. Act like it.
That said, Vince Lombardi said that football is not a contact sport. Football is a collision sport. Dancing is a contact sport. There's plenty of contact out there, but yeah, I see his point. You have massive dudes running into each other. That's a collision.
Well, not only that, but Troy Aikman's under fire because he's discussing. He goes, "It's time to take the dresses off," and apparently, the media is killing him.
That is the most interesting thing he has ever said.
Even
I
when he said that him and Buck used to drink tequila in the booth.
I'm just saying his voice,
It's up there.
man, it's just like it bores me to death, man. Cannot stand him and Buck together.
Yeah, maybe it's if he had a couple less concussions, maybe he'd be more of an entertainer. Now Buck, I just think he's just too dry for my liking.
Maybe. Anyway, let's go back to a game that also had people in an uproar for other reasons. Thursday night game, the touchdownless affair between the Colts and the Broncos at Mile High. Remember in week 1, whenever the Broncos kicked the 64-yard field goal and we said they should all go for it? Well, Nathaniel Hackett might have taken that advice a little too much to heart, as he went for it on 4th down instead of kicking a 23-yard field goal that would have tied it up. And Russell Wilson missed KJ Hamler, who was wide open in the end zone, allowing the Colts to step away with a 12-9 victory. Congratulations. You get the golf clap.
Yay.
Yep, that's all they get for that one. So, people were already on the fire Hackett train after that. Not that I can necessarily blame them. I was just on the soapbox of, let's get rid of these Thursday night games. Most of them are just bad. Let's go back to only having Thursday games on Thanksgiving, just as God intended. We have Dallas and Detroit, their two opponents. They all have a bye the week before Thanksgiving, so it would be like in week 11, you'd play on the Sunday, week 12 is your bye, and then the Thanksgiving day is the start of week 13. Not 100% sure that's exactly how the weeks fall, but you get my drift.
Yes, indeed.
I think that's the way to do it. But of course, they want to sell a bunch of Amazon Prime subscriptions, and I'm like, nope, not falling for it. Not going to watch subpar games and continue to enrich Jeff Bezos, aka everybody's favorite Bond villain.
Ah, the pain.
Yes, indeed. Also, speaking of questionable coaching decisions, what do you think at the end of the Chargers and Browns game? Brandon Staley going for it on fourth down from like his own 45 with like, what, a minute five some odd left? The Browns have no timeouts. Just punt. Make Jacoby Brissett drive 80 plus yards with no timeouts. What are you doing?
I'm with you. Listen, there's been a lot of questionable decisions by Staley. And when we talk about Justin Herbert and how everyone just loves this guy and predicts him to be the next great quarterback in the caliber of Prime Breeze, Matt Ryan, etc., and we say, "Oh, but he's got to win games." Well, Staley's holding him back. He really is. And a decision like that. Okay, so the Browns screw up. So if Kareem Hunt doesn't get tackled for a loss, to bring it back, what, 3 more yards? Technically, he
Something
kind of
like
make.
that.
Technically, he makes that kick. So
Right.
all Brissett had to do was quarterback sneak and get 2 yards up, and well, you know damn well that if the Chargers lost that game, Staley's job would officially been on the line. Should be at least,
Perhaps.
because that right there was inexcusable. How are you not going to try and listen? Even if you get a touchback with no timeouts left, you're going to have to make Jacoby Brissett, an unproven quarterback, march down the field, shove it down your throat for a little bit. No timeouts again. And then you got to kick probably between 50 and 60 yards. Okay, reasonably 40 to 60, somewhere around there. Do I think he could have done it? Personally, it's hard for me to vouch that he can. Agree?
Well, we saw Cade York make a 58-yard game winner in week 1 at Carolina. So he's got the leg to do it, but my thought is limited time on the clock, no timeouts. You know, with the way it's set up, you had 65 seconds. You may have needed 10 to 15 yards to get comfortable for York, as opposed to punting it and making it that much further. We all remember that one play years ago in Indianapolis when Bill Belichick tried to go for it on fourth down to win the game, but he didn't get it. And then Peyton Manning went in for the winning touchdown after that. I mean, I guess this is a similar situation. You could say that coach of the visiting team tried to put it away. But I guess my point here is we're all going to blast Brandon Staley for this. So, like, don't call Bill Belichick a genius for doing much the same thing. I mean, I know the resumes are significantly different. Don't take me quite that far out of context, but like, do you see what I'm saying here? Like, it's a very
Yes.
similar decision. So, don't give one guy a pass, but not the other. Just be consistent. That's all I have to say about that. Now, let's get to the Cowboys. We both thought the Cowboys were going to win this game. And once again, the Rams looked awful.
Can I just say that that's probably the most disappointing team so far this year?
Yeah, I'll
You're,
allow it.
I understand. Okay, so on the top of your head, there's only three pieces missing. Odell, but he was replaced with Allen Robinson.
Yep.
We have Andrew Whitworth, who retired,
Mm-hmm.
and Von Miller. The
Correct.
defense is still a force. I
Mm-hmm.
understand the offensive line is young, but you look at this team, are they exciting to watch?
No.
I don't think so. So we agree on that. Do they look like a threat?
No.
Okay. So we don't know what happened. We don't know if it's a Super Bowl hangover or not. We can say the magic has lapsed. But this was a team, even before Matthew Stafford got there, that was a playoff ready and a big threat team. And if you look at the product on the field, so far, this is production wise. Like, if you look at it on the field, if you look at statistically, so far, this is the worst team Sean McVay's had of him being head coach,
Right.
which is terrible. I mean, the Rams got to figure something out. Is it a locker room thing? Is it a coaching thing? Is the whole thing about screw the draft picks? Is that running dry? Is it age? Is it play calling? The offense is not the same, and the defense can only do so much.
True. That said, we've seen some teams even last year have some success running the ball right at them, but there's undeniably still two of the best playmakers on defense in the league still there with Ramsey and Donald. But yeah, those guys can only do so much. And of course, they added Bobby Wagner too.
Okay, so that replaces Von Miller.
Kind of. I
So
mean,
I'm
an
just saying,
inside linebacker is not going to be the pass rush specialist that Miller was.
well, I'm just saying they're retooling. They retooled a wide receiver. They retooled a linebacker. I understand a little bit different position. This team didn't change drastically.
Not drastically. I also think they lost Leonard Floyd from last year's team, who was an outside linebacker.
I believe so, yes. Well,
Yeah, it could be enough.
one thing I find shocking. I understand the schedules are different, but I'll say this: the net points for the Rams are negative 36. And if you want to know who's better than that, the Carolina Panthers,
Ooh,
the Detroit Lions.
wow.
Yeah. Let's see who else. The Indianapolis Colts,
Okay,
the Dolphins.
makes sense.
So a negative 36 for net points. The only teams that seem worse than that, let's see. We have
Steelers,
the Commanders,
figures.
the Steelers, as you predicted, and that's it. That's the list.
Yeah, the Steelers were kind of obvious considering they were just absolutely blown out by Buffalo by 35 this week alone.
So yes, so it's the Commanders, the Steelers, and then they're the third last in net points. Which, granted, they got decimated by the Bills too.
Right, not
I mean
quite
that,
as badly.
but that mediocre performance against the Cardinals for one of their victories, that don't cut it.
And slipping by the Falcons, too.
I mean, that's also crazy talk if you ask me. It's absolute witchcraft, a complete abomination. That
There you
shouldn't
have it.
happen.
Shouldn't, but it is. Anyways,
And
let's move on to week 6 games. Starting off, we got a Thursday night game that would have been good about 80 years ago. Commanders and the Bears. Washington, Chicago. This game has not been entertaining since you had what, Sammy Baugh and Sid Luckman? Okay, I don't know 100% if they played at the
okay,
same time, but they may
in
have.
in the 80s, this would have been great. Now, uh, it didn't matter. It doesn't matter what this platform is on. It doesn't matter if it's on Amazon Prime, ABC, NBC, cable, YouTube, Twitch, anything. Let's be honest. If somebody said, I didn't watch the game Thursday, I had no interest, and I'm a diehard football fan, I get it. You get a pass. This is the Thursday night mediocrity
Yep.
because these two teams are just not great.
Nope.
Let's see. The Ron Rivera Bowl, as I'm calling it.
Good
Give me the
name.
Bears.
I'm going Bears as well.
Well, think about it. Last week we had the Peyton Manning Bowl. This week we have the Ron Rivera Bowl.
Yeah, it seems fair, though. Wouldn't Carolina versus Washington be more apt? But I don't really want to argue that point
Well,
anymore.
he was part of that big Hall of Fame worthy Bears team, which won the championship. My father watched that game, and so it was one of the best he's ever seen.
Hmm,
I think of him as a Bear as a player, and right now he's coaching Washington. So, just my 2 cents.
fair enough. Moving on. 49ers at the Falcons.
And give me the 49ers.
Agreed. That one seems pretty easy. Patriots at the Browns.
Ooh, you know, Bailey Zappi is doing much better than we thought. I think Bill Belichick is gonna have the number on Jacoby Brissett. I mean, it is his product after all. Give me the
True.
Patriots. I could see the Patriots going back to 500. Are they a playoff team? You never know. This could happen. Could be magic with Bailey Zappi. Give me the Patriots this week, though. I won't get too carried away.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I think I'm going to stick with the Browns. Although I think that would violate my rule. I think I picked them against the Falcons. They lost. I picked them last week against the Chargers. Boy, you make some good points with this one. I mean, I've gone on about how great Nick Chubb has been. We saw the Patriots defense have a vintage performance against the Lions this past week. But yeah, the Zapper, he's playing well. You know, you've convinced me. I'm going to go with New England.
I didn't see that one coming.
Yep. Moving on, we got a battle of greens. We got the Jets at the Packers.
You know, I'm going to go Packers on this one, but I'm very hesitant. I'm sorry, but Aaron Rodgers, you are on my shit list. You just are. Because all these games that on paper you should win, you're either making them too close for comfort, or as in last week, I don't care if you're in London or not, you kind of crapped your pants. You're supposed to be an elite quarterback. You're supposed to be a top 3 quarterback in the game. And right now, against these bad teams, you have to win these games. When somebody said something just a couple of days ago, I think it was Saturday when I was just watching some college ball, they said, "What's the first thing you think of when you see this man?" And the picture was Aaron Rodgers holding the football. You want to know what that answer is? A quarterback with so many excuses, with a closet drug addiction that is underperforming. I'm sorry. He's on my shit list. Now, he could shut me up. I will always eat my crow if it's proven wrong in front of me. I'll do it on the show. I'll write an apology letter, whatever. But right now, he looks like crap in comparison to what he's supposed to be. And it rips my insides out saying that.
Right. Also, part of it was you're going against the Giants' defense that can't slow down the run at all, and you're calling a bunch of passes in the second half. What's up with that? Play calling has to be better. Moving on. Jaguars at the Colts. As one sided as it is in Jacksonville, it's about as one sided in Indianapolis. The past 7 years, the Colts have won 6 of them in their home stadium. I'm going to go with the Colts.
Give me Colts. Although, did you actually see that Matt Ryan and Matt Stafford have the same amount of touchdowns, interceptions, and time sacked?
I did not.
Yes. 5, 7, and 21.
How about that?
And we've been talking a lot about how Matt Ryan is the problem. Matthew Stafford, you could complain about your line, but whoo boy, that's a lot of suck.
Well, I mean, with Indy, the line is also not very good. And you wonder what the coaching and front office have been doing whenever you have a quarterback that's, situation's been a revolving door in recent years.
It's
But
a carousel for sure.
yeah, I digress on that. Moving on, we got Minnesota at Miami. Skylar Thompson will get his first career start for the Finns. So I'm taking the Vikings.
Let's see, it's a 1 o'clock game.
Yep.
I'm not sure if the secondary could keep up with JJ and company. I'm going to take the Vikings, especially during a 1 o'clock game. Oh, absolutely.
Right on. Next up, we got the Bengals going to the Big Easy. We've got Who Day and Who Dat.
There is no Houday. Yes, that's a jab, and I stand by it. Anyways, this is going to be tough. Is it going to be Andy Dalton? James is still hurt, right?
I think so.
I think Jamar Chase is due for a big game. Despite what's going on off the field, which we will not get into about, especially since it's been very vague on details, Jamar Chase is due for another big game. I'm not sure if Honey Badger is going to keep up with him or if it's Lattimore. Give me the Bengals in this one.
I agree. I
It's
also
not
got the Bengals.
it's not a firm choice. It's not an easy one, but that's what I'm going with.
Yeah, I agree. Next up, we got a rematch of Super Bowl 35, the Ravens and the Giants.
Ooh, ouch. This is probably one of the toughest predictions of the week. It's one of them.
Definitely.
Offensive wise, I think it's going to be good. I think it's going to come down to the defense. The pass rush against the Giants is going to be deadly, and the secondary versus Lamar will be tested. But give me the Ravens.
Yeah, I think I'm going to stick with the Ravens too in a pretty close game. The Ravens get so far ahead in all these games, but we've seen Tua and Allen come back on them. I just don't know that the Giants have that same kind of explosiveness to be able to mount a comeback if they get down. So I'll stick with the Birds. Next up, we got Tampa Bay in the Steel City taking on Pittsburgh.
Bucks next.
Agreed. All right, we got the Steve Wilkes led Carolina Panthers going to Los Angeles to take on the Rams.
Rams next.
I agree. Also, we'll have Steve Wilkes leading PJ Walker as Baker Mayfield is out.
It doesn't matter if it's PJ Walker, Sam Darnold, or a guy from the parking lot. Steve Wilkes is incapable, and even though I say that the Rams are an abomination of what they should be, if they lose to Carolina, I'm just going to ram off for the rest of the year. Give me Rams all day and twice on Sunday.
Yeah, I tried to convince myself the Panthers could somehow come back and rally for a victory in this one. Couldn't convince myself to do it.
Don't try
Rams,
too hard. That's inevitable.
like Thanos.
Uh-huh.
Next up, we got Battle of the Birds, Arizona going to Seattle.
I thought about it. I thought both ways. Give me Seattle.
I'm going with Seattle too. I haven't picked them in a game yet this year. It's time for me to do so. Okay, now we got the big showdowns of the week. Buffalo at Kansas City.
Oh, this is game of the week, isn't it?
Yes.
Oh man, the Bills look unstoppable right now. They really do. I mean, they only lost because of guys needing IVs in the humidity in Miami, and literally all they needed was 2 more seconds on the clock. Give me Bills. Uh,
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree though. These two teams, they're kind of mirror images of each other. Both of them are seemingly lacking any sort of run game between the tackles. I mean, the Bills got to find someone else who's going to carry the ball other than Allen. You can't have him being your leading rusher as well, can you? I don't think so. Don't think he'll last. I don't know if Clyde's going to keep it up or if they're going to get Isaiah Pacheco. Is he going to take over? Don't know what's going on with that. I guess I have more faith in the Bills' defense, though that depleted secondary against Mahomes. Leslie Frazier will have his work cut out for him. But I guarantee you this, they will cover Travis Kelsey. Valdez Scantling might be the one who has to beat them. And I think Leslie Frazier is probably willing to make that bet.
Also, Tre'Davious White is coming off the IR, and Jordan Poyer, though he's banged up, he's not written off. So this secondary, I give the edge to Buffalo. They just nail their defense. They just have. So if you take that into account with their pass rush, their secondary, their offense when the Kansas City defense hasn't been consistent all year, unfortunately, I have to give it to Buffalo.
Yeah, we'll see. Next up, Sunday night game, 4-1 Cowboys going to Philadelphia.
Ooh. Uh, hmm. This is another. This is another one where you just kind of get stumped.
Yeah, for me, I think this is an Eagles game because Dallas is dominated based on their ability to rush the passer. Philadelphia's offensive line is one of the best in the league. Micah Parsons not going to have the same kind of day going up against Lane Johnson, well, part of the time. I think Parsons and Lawrence, they'll probably switch off who's going right and left. Obviously, Lane Johnson's still getting it done. Got a solid left tackle, too. Gosh, forget his name right now. But Jason Kelsey, going to have that offensive line in the right place at the right time. He's brilliant blocker, great tactical center, too. And then I think the Trayvon Diggs versus A.J. Brown matchup will be very intriguing. Is Diggs going to make the big play that turns it for Dallas, or is he going to give it up that turns it for the Eagles? That's what I'm looking at, and I think it's going to go the way of the Eagles.
I'm going to go Eagles on this one just simply because, well, if we're going by the undefeated quarterbacks, I think Hurts is better on paper. It wouldn't
Agreed.
surprise me if they try to use Micah Parsons as a spy for Jalen Hurts because that's how he's been burning everybody. But if you
Right.
look at the last year and this year of him throwing the ball, somebody said that Jalen Hurts won over fans for what he did bailing out Tua at Alabama. And I said, absolutely not. Because if you want to go by who he bailed out the Eagles fans by not having to suffer Carson Wentz being their starting quarterback for a few more years.
Perhaps.
I think Jalen Hurts is easily playing as a top 10. You could argue top 5 at this moment in time. I'm going to
Maybe.
go Eagles. I think Jalen Hurts is definitely beatable. But right now, he's been playing smart.
It's
He's been
true.
playing effective.
Yes.
He's been, you could argue about how's he doing between him and Lamar. Right now, I'm going Hurts. I'm a big
Okay.
stockholder in Hurts.
Right on. If the Cowboys are going to win this game, they're going to need turnovers and they're going to need a great game from the ground from Zeke and Pollard. But I expect a lot of 8 in the box looks because you've got Darius Slay, who's going to have a great matchup going against CeeDee Lamb. And I think Rush will have to make some plays through the air. He did practically nothing through the air against the Rams. Didn't have to. Dallas played smart. I think for once, Alex Alcazaz's anger against Kellen Moore might have been stifled for a bit, which is surprising.
He knows when to let off the gas when it's called for.
Yep. But he always tells you the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Yep, here's our plug for Cowboys Talk for this week. Go check out his show. We'll leave it in the description. But on to our last game. Monday night, we got the Broncos in LA taking on the Chargers. Who you got?
Uh, I got a good amount of money for someone who could try to take the Broncos off of prime time because it's a joke.
Please.
I'm tired of this clown show Broncos country. And it doesn't matter if he wants to blame it on a shoulder injury where it's an injection. The biggest thing that blows my mind is that before he played one game, they gave him an extension. And whether or not he believes in himself or if he's putting on just a front, Dangerous is just laughing all the way to the bank. I understand the trade, but the fact that you gave him that kind of money and there's so many quarterbacks that could play better in his shoes, which you could argue Daniel Jones and Jimmy Garoppolo. That's terrible. Give me the Chargers on this one. And I feel like it'll be a close game, but I think it won't be great to watch.
Perhaps not.
Close, but not good.
I'm going to go Chargers as well. Melvin Gordon might have a big night going against the Chargers' laughable run defense, but that's about it. Still going to go with Herbie in this one. So that wraps it up.
Hard not to.
Yep. So remember to check us out on Twitter, guys, Gabbin, Gridiron. We're also on YouTube now. And on behalf of AJ Torres, I am Josh McSwain. Thank you again for listening. We'll see you next time.